Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Influenced by OUTFRONT, the Experience Evolution in partnership with Infinity Festival. I'm Rachel Wintner from OUTFRONT Media. I sit on the brand partnerships team and also lead our entertainment vertical. OUTFRONT Media is the #1 out-of-home media company in the US. I joined the company after a long career in media and publishing at a few challenger brands you may have heard of, like Condé Nast, Refinery 29, Bustle Media Group. The bridge for me to out of home was the lure and opportunity to work within such a creative space and culture, really helping brands to reach peak brand fame. The industry has become so digital and social, and my favorite way to execute for brands has always been through experiential and having the texture of the brand come to life. We know experiences are looking a bit different, and today our conversation will be around the evolution of experiences, the technology that powers them, and how brands embrace creative tech, data, and emerging trends to bring them to life for our consumers. So I'm going to have the panel go around and make introductions, as we have an all-star cast today from TikTok, Intel, Twitter, Create VR, and Epic Games. We're so lucky. Perhaps each of you can share a quick highlight on your role and what excites you about experiences. Ravi, I'm going to kick it off with you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, and everyone on the panel. First of all, I'd like to thank Infinity Festival. This is our third edition, and 2020, what a year it has been. But glad we are continue and keeping the momentum to run the show. So my name is Ravi Velhal. I work for Intel Corporation as a global content standards and technology strategist. And over the last 4 years, we've been producing a lot of immersive media content, especially collaborating with Hollywood and even like content creators in India, such as A.R. Rahman and Brazil and in Europe. So technically, it's not just like started overnight for us. Over the last 3 decades, we've been driving the digitization transition in the Hollywood and the media industry throughout the world, right from the DVD days to Blu-ray to Ultra HD, then ultraviolet, and 4K and 8K also. We work very extensively, bringing all the partners together and delivering some really phenomenal technologies. And since 2016, the beginning of era of immersive media, we started co-producing, working with a lot of content creators. Lemas was our first collaboration with A.R. Rahman. And we also worked with independent content producer as well to show some of the highlights, what immersive media can do and cannot do. So a lot of my favorite, but in fact, with Jake Black here, we produce First Man as well as Spider-Man Far From Home and Homecoming and over 5G as well. So what excites me is like, the emotional connect that immersive media brings to the world, and the democratization and access to this immersive media technology that goes beyond just like in the borders of United States, how it reaches globally and enhances life around. And thanks and kudos to all the other partners here who take that similar vision forward and make this technology accessible for all. Thank you, Rachel. Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to go around in a circle. So Miles, if you want to introduce yourself, that would be terrific.
Sure. Miles Perkins, business development. I lead the charge with Unreal in the film and television space. A lot of people think of Epic Games. They think of all the V-Bucks that they're buying for their kids in Fortnite. But the engine actually also has many implications across film and television, of course, gaming, manufacturing, simulation, architecture, and construction. And the real unifying thing there is really around visualization. And how can I very quickly, instantaneously see something in a three-dimensional space? The engine has actually been used, my first engagement with it was actually back in 90 or 91, working on AI, artificial intelligence, while I was at Industrial Light and Magic. So this is kind of a continuation of this idea of having what we all know as being in this virtual space. And what is virtual, what is CG? How can I make this be real time? How can I make it act just the same as something that is around me? So I'm also really happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Miles. We're thrilled to have you as well. Jake, if you want to kick it off next.
Sure. My name is Jake Black. I am the head of We are an immersive experience company that primarily works with Hollywood and entertainment marketing. So like Ravi said, we've worked on a few big things together, like First Man. We did Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, released on PC and PlayStation. We have 2 Emmy nominations. It's been really great to see some outside recognition of our emerging little space. I really got drawn into it, kind of starting as a gaming geek, just kind of figured, but then, really with the with VR, like it plays with a different part of your brain than a lot of flat media does, and it really pushes the subconscious kind of parts of it in a way that traditional ways can't. So it was really great to kind of creative tool that didn't really have any rules or guidelines on how to work with it. So it was constant discovery, in good ways and bad ways. And it's been just a really fun kind of part of the journey.
Thank you. We're so excited to hear more from you. Nola, if you want to kick off your introduction next.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm Nola Weinstein, and I lead culture and brand experiences at Twitter. Our team is charged with activating and amplifying the best of Twitter. There are almost 500 million tweets sent every day. There are conversations in every realm. So how do we make that feel really human and connected? Over the course of the past few years, we've been bringing those conversations to life. And what we focus on really is just the voice of the people who use Twitter, who love it, ensuring that we are elevating those who aren't always seen and heard. The conversations can be purpose-driven. This year, we launched a massive campaign on Juneteenth, another one around mask wearing that I'll talk about later. Twitter is, so we just brought tweets into the world of all the things that Twitter is. And our team focuses on ensuring that what's on the outside is felt on the inside, and that those on the inside of the brand can be felt on the outside and out in the world. So excited to talk to you all today, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Carly, if you want to bring us up with the last introduction.
Yes, I'll make it super quick. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's great to be here in an amazing company and with OUTFRONT, who has a very special place in my heart. So I'm the global head of B2B marketing at TikTok. And I think what makes us kind of really special, particularly in this time, and Ravi kind of connected that for me, was the sense of community and connection that people can feel in immersive experiences. And I think that's what TikTok does very well. So whether it's with Ratatouille the musical or some amazing brand campaigns where brands really get involved through branded effects or gamified effects, we've been seeing, a huge uptick in user engagement and downloads, because I think particularly during this time now more than ever, people crave a sense of connection and community, and we're happy to provide that for them. So excited to get into it.
Amazing. So as we know, immersive experiences can transform, ordinary events into unforgettable adventures, as has been illustrated by each of your brands. And as technology evolves, so do the experiential capabilities, giving brands unique ways to engage with the audiences that we've just discussed. So I know, while it's been a tough year, I know for me, deeply missing my immersive music experiences. I did enjoy the recreation of the whale scene that Amazon did on the rooftop of the Grove, because I just love that show. And that scene was so unbelievable on screen to then, sort of see that come back to life in a way with some very clever mask messaging, kind of brought me some surprise and delight in the middle of a tough year. But let's get into the fun stuff. AR, AI, 3D, voice, immersive cinema, gaming, oh my. As we are no longer constrained by these physical boundaries, the social media halo provides scale and global amplification, bringing that joy of experiences to global audiences instantly. So to that end, Carly, I'd love to kick it off with you. Obviously TikTok offers experiences fueling an immersive social movement, bringing joy to 2020. So please take us through your approach on the platform, as TikTok itself and with the brands, as described.
Definitely. So I think at TikTok, we like to say we're the sunniest place on the internet. And, it's really interesting to see how the community engages completely organically. I think my favorite story right now, what's going on is you'll see on the platform the hashtag Ratatouille the musical. It has over 141 million views right now. People, it started organically a few weeks ago. Someone said like, hey, I am a frustrated actor. I haven't been able to be on Broadway, excuse me. And, I want to get my creative juices flowing. He loved Remy, the rat from the Ratatouille movie. And so he created all by himself a scene from the musical. Someone else picked it up and created a song. And then you started seeing it, just spiral from there. People were doing makeup tutorials for how to become a rat. People were setting up scenery and building, entire kind of set designs just to see like what they could do during this time. They couldn't do it in person. And so they built an entire musical from scratch on TikTok. It all was streaming live on the platform, and you could see how people interacted with it. And what is even cooler is, as of today, we've announced that on January 1st, we're actually going to be doing a live performance of this musical, Ratatouille the musical, to benefit the Actors Fund, because we know that there are so many people that have been affected by it. So it's really awesome to see how something kind of just took off naturally and the community responded, and now we can see where it's going. I think what's great is when brands respond to that kind of virality. I think we all know the ocean spray story, someone just kind of skateboarding to work, drinking ocean spray while listening to Fleetwood Mac. What we saw from there was Ocean Spray got involved, Fleetwood Mac got involved, got on the platform. You saw it, Stevie Nicks was recreating, everyone was kind of recreating this viral moment, and it's cool to see brands really take advantage. We've seen a few ourselves. I think my favorite one is probably Serta Simmons. They are a 150-year-old mattress brand. They're competing in a category which has Casper and Purple and all these DTC mattress brands. And so they had to do something to keep themselves relevant. So what they did was they said, okay, who's our audience that we're trying to reach? We're trying to reach kind of millennials and Gen Z. What do they like to do during the summer that they can't do? They can't go to concerts. They're not like you, Rachel. They can't, you're missing your live music shows. They are too. So we're going to recreate a music festival experience for them. All they need to do is, instead of stage diving off of a stage at Coachella, they can stage dive onto their mattress and it'll unlock an experience like a music festival. That hashtag had over 6 billion views. It was called Snoozapalooza. The website for Serta Simmons got over 100% uplift in traffic, just people wanting to play around and see what it was about. They saw a massive uplift in sales, and it was an all-around win for them because they were able to really immerse their community and people who really wanted to, have something to connect one another in their brand, and they got in the conversation. So I think we've seen that, when people really take advantage of the time or a movement, or give something a little special back to their consumers or our users, our community, we see it as a real win.
Incredible. The Snoozapalooza is something I'm going to have to fondly quote or hashtag myself at some point in the future. Thank you for sharing and bringing all of that to life for us. So, Ravi, as you are busy extending way beyond sort of the lights, camera, action approach of the TikTok generation into lights, compute, action view that Intel has of immersive cinema, please expand on the dynamic position that you are taking on with creative experiences, fueling incredible innovation. And, I'd love to hear sort of your favorite experience around that as well.
Sure. So first of all, world need more ratatouille just to eat as well as to experience, because that's one of the phenomenal, and that shows the power of technology and creativity, how the democratization happened, because, reaching out to every population, every strata, then that's basically a true diversity and inclusion that we fundamentally believe in. So I appreciate doing that very well. So I have many of my favorites, but just I'll give you like in a laundry list, and I just hone in on to one particular for a reason. And when we did Dunkirk's Every Breath with Christopher Nolan, Warner Brothers, that was one of the phenomenal experiences, because that transport you to the beach of Dunkirk and let you visualize how that land, sea, and air action happened, that war action right in front of you. So strong storytelling, and putting that in a really 3 to 4 minutes is a really challenging. And that's for that reason, that was one of my favorite. Then we did the Spider-Man over 5G. That was like in a multiplayer experience. And Jack Black and his team been some phenomenal work with Sony Pictures. When we brought that was because of the technology and the way it kind of like brings everybody together and kind of unleashes the VR into multiplayer gaming experience. That was another favorite. Then First Man experience, VRE, that we did with Universal Picture, Wyatt, and the partner, that transform you into the moon. I mean, a lot of this experience that we have done, we put user in a motion chair built by Positron. And when we did that, actually, people kind of like get a complete 360 feel, and it transforms you to the moon in the footstep of Neil Armstrong. And imagine that you're just like not watching the moon, you're feeling the moon landing. And that's a really strong emotional connect. So at the bottom line here is a story that drives the engagement, and that is absolutely fundamental. And the technology shows the way how to achieve those dreams. Another example with 2 times Oscar and Grammy winner A.R. Rahman, that is almost like going to be a full-length VR cinema, which is coming. It's in the final phases of production. Mr. Rahman just did the interview last week at Variety and disclosed that. And that's a storytelling cinema with the aroma in it. It's an olfactory experience. The story driven by the aroma in a full 360 and ambisonic audios and so on. So everything has like in a different kind of like a genre and like in a strength. But one of my favorite experience that we did, I mean, these are all like in a big productions. Recently, we produced experience called a Repangia in Brazil. What we did actually, we brought 2 Amazonian tribe, Chikuna and Tupinamba, and they showed us like their ancestral knowledge of thousands of years, how they connect with Mother Earth, how they protect their earth, and how they transfer that energy from one person to another person. It is kind of like a techno-shamanic experience. And that was more like in a social immersive VR experience where they're able to bring we had more than 5,000, 6,000 people in Museo da Mana in Rio de Janeiro. And it was done by Museo da Mana, the research lab there. And what it allows us is basically to explore the boundaries and push it beyond. It was a volumetric experience done with a sub $1,000 volumetric camera. So it's not just like you need to have a multi-million-dollar budget to produce this kind of thing. And that is also will inspire the TikTok generation, where it's kind of like a budget is a primary concern, but they're not lack of ideas or lack of story. And that's, I think, like in a segue that you can take to drive or this democratization of technology forward. So I guess long story short, I do have favorite experiences, including one experience in Colombia where they tie to you in a tree and nothing happens. So what if somebody keep you for 10 years? That's how exactly it feels like when you get kidnapped in that area. So the point here is a strong story drives the experience, and that's what drive the whole momentum forward. So I'm really thankful that we're able to work with a lot of content creators around the globe who kind of not afraid to push those boundaries.
I mean, what a treat. I personally will choose Africa over kidnapping in Colombia, but I want to see it all and experience it all. Thank you for sharing. What an incredible volume of just amazing work. We're going to cut to Nola because I think that this is just such an interesting polarity and sharp contrast to how, Intel's technical immersive experiences are, juxtaposed to sort of the more analog approach that Twitter is taking in the world. So Nola, please share all of that with us.
Yeah, thank you. I want to be transported anywhere, Reese. That sounds good to me. Yeah. So it's interesting, for our global event marketing and experiential team, we're usually charged with humanizing the brand by creating in real life moments of conversation and connection. And our slate consisted of, tentpole events, industry events, smaller, more intimate salons and gatherings. And of course, like everyone else over the past 9 months, we've had to sharply pivot, but one thing hasn't changed. Because Twitter is, of course, a technology platform, it's in the palm of your hand. It can feel like an endless sea of content or a vortex. You can get sucked in and lost. And so we really try to create tactile, more simple, analog experiences with tweets always at the center. And this year, almost all of our work has been primarily driven by out of home, with certain on-platform extensions. So two examples of our work, and then I'll talk a little bit about how brands have leveraged Twitter to create immersive experiences in this time. Everything that we do, we start with the conversation on Twitter, volume of conversation, things that are bubbling and popping up in the zeitgeist. One example is mask wearing, still a conversation, right? Today, COVID, #1 topic on Twitter, so is the prom on Netflix. But if you look at the conversations over the past many months, conversations about masks had over 100 million tweets to date. And those conversations were in some ways preachy, scientific, authoritative, political, polarizing, same old, we've heard it. Either people were listening and cooperating or they weren't. And what we found is that younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, had caution fatigue. They were over it. Masks weren't cool. Cities were struggling to try and get their messages out in new ways. They came to us for help. And so what we decided to do was, of course, look on the platform. And we found millions of tweets that were funny, witty, irreverent, and just so true and human. Tweets like, yo, dude, your breath stinks, wear a mask. Hey, maybe if you wore a mask, she'd go out with you again. If we could smell your cologne through your mask, you're wearing too much. And they're just true, they're funny. In Miami, we put tweets that said, think of the mask as a bikini for the face. And we brought them out into the world, on billboards, on floating barges, on airplane flyovers, in chalkings, in parks and beaches. And the goal was to get people to, of course, stop, smile, pay attention, and hopefully mask up. When we think about great content on Twitter and other platforms, you want to create creative that has feed and thumb stopping power. When you're bringing it out into the world, we want to create feet stopping power, get people to stop, look, make sure that the content's really resonating in the moment. And for us, it's usually conversation first, really simple and just true, enduring, and coming from the people who use Twitter and love it, not from us. On the flip side of that, when you think about the NBA and the power of NBA Twitter, Twitter has become the second screen, the first screen. NBA Twitter is one of our most vibrant communities, cohorts. And a season that's canceled, NBA Twitter, like all other, of course, fan kingdoms, were dismayed. When the bubble came to be, we wanted to bring the roar of the stadium and the roar of the crowd, which is Twitter, into the arena. And so Twitter and the NBA partnered to bring tweets from super fans, from players, from celebrities into the arena every day to build that deeper, closer connection. That was especially resonant and powerful. And I think also brands like Disney have done a tremendous job of creating experiences in this time that touch you everywhere you are, but continue the conversation on Twitter, make people feel less alone, more deeply connected, ensuring that if you see a creative asset out in the world, when you're on Twitter, you can see the same extension. And we also sent boxes to people to their homes. Super fans got boxes with the ultimate Hamilton experience when you could watch that on Disney+. And we see more and more examples like that happening. And I'm eager to see how this continued constraint breeds more creativity from us, I hope from my team, from our brand partners, and from the people who use Twitter.
Thank you. I think that's actually a perfect bridge to Jake. So in terms of marrying the creative tech that you've mastered and the evolution of assets into creative immersion, as Noel is talking about, sort of much more analog and physical assets, how are you seeing your experiences with the incredible franchise brands you work on as a creator and how you see the future happening there?
Yeah, it's obviously like a very interesting time for it, right? We're really getting a bump for at-home VR, right? For especially Oculus Quest. I don't know what the sales of Oculus Quest 2 are right now, but I remember, when everybody got quarantined, it was impossible to find a Quest 1 for months. And so, creators in that world are really excited about it because we feel like we've got a foothold that finally, we've been kind of waiting for with a great device, and then, people are really starting to use it a lot. But on the flip side of that, we've lost the LBE, the location-based part, which a lot of people were really relying on, not just as businesses like, say, the Void or Dreamscape, but also like content that like Ravi and I made, where we would take, First Man to a film festival in a positron chair, something that has a specific hardware integration. That's not, really possible anymore. So in a lot of the discussions that I'm having, it actually is, we're looking at ways to disperse the content over a lot of different channels, whether it's immersive or not. Kind of, it's always that axiom of like, the most immersive is always the hardest one to distribute, and the least immersive is the easiest one. So kind of like from a cell phone video to, you know, a high-end VR rig, you know, and that kind of continuum. So what I'm seeing a lot right now is, you know, I'm talking to some people that are doing a piece made for film festivals and for a very specific single location that's appropriate for it. But they know that chances are that film festival is going to be online only, and that location isn't really going to be open to visitors. For what it is, people are going to be naturally suspicious of putting on a VR headset that's shared with other people. Even, you know, when we're, you know, quote, back to normal, I think there's going to be a lot of lingering kind of, you know, phobias or activities like we'll all be washing our hands for a long time, and we'll all be wearing our masks for a long time, share headsets, even if we're vaccinated or whatever it might be. So we're looking at, okay, how do we make sort of like our flagship version of this piece, you know, for the high-end VR, but then how do we also get it out to as many people as we can in, you know, in different, whether it's just like a flat video for a portion of it, you know, and really trying to make sure that that content that they're making and spending so much of their emotional creative energy on can still be seen, but also still be, you know, seen at its greatest quality. So they're for that yet, but people are really, really looking to see how they can do that.
That's fascinating. I look forward to seeing that develop. I mean, to think about how that could be even more impactful, more immersive, and experience it in a way beyond
For sure.
the headset. So that brings us to Miles. I thought your perspective was a perfect way to culminate this part of our conversation and discussion, as you have this ability to bridge the gap between the physical and the virtual world. And you talked about visualization and how that is just so critical in culture and society and industry. You talked about it through the lens of education, automotive. Would love for you to expand on that as we close out our session today before some Q&A.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think one of the things that the audience take away, like, what's coming next? What is it that, what is this unique perfect storm that we have right now? What opportunities does it afford us? And I think what's happening, if I look at all of my colleagues here on this call, they're all bringing these unique things and these unique channels and these unique technologies, which ultimately allow you to tell your story, but not only in one channel, across many different channels. And what I've been kind of saying, and to dig back into it, is we're now at a point where we can bridge the divide between what is virtual and what is physical. So that, you know, as some may have seen with the Unreal Engine, what we did with the Mandalorian, being able to have a LED screen. And we're doing this on many, many shows right now where people are shooting things that look like they're on location in these fantastic places, but they're actually on a stage with a LED screen behind them. And the idea of being able to render at really a 60th of a second an image where, you know, in my background, it could take you hours, days to render a single frame. We're doing it immediately. And what that means is all those byproducts that came with visualizing something and having to compartmentalize. And, you know, if I want to do one thing on TikTok, that's a whole different team than the team that I want to have do that is, you know, some, you know, location-based activation. What I think is happening is there's a unifying kind of assets and unifying technologies, which are allowing us to extend our brands across what is physical and what is virtual. And, you know, what does that mean? That means, like, if I'm talking about, you know, our kids talk about themselves as being a brand. So let's just take that, for example. So, you know, you have someone who's an influencer, who is a real influencer, talking to the camera and so on and so forth. They can actually then roll directly into a digital version of themselves that takes you through the night and does some various different things. And then they pop out on the other side as a person again, or even that other incarnation of themselves as they've driven it is popping up in multiple different places and connecting. And I think that we all need to also take a step back and see what the youth is doing, and how they're consuming media, and how do we capture their attention. Well, it happens to be that they're on a phone, they're on their laptop, either playing a game or they have Discord going, and yet each one of them is only touching like maybe 2 or 3 different places. All of them are touching maybe 5 or 6 different places, yet they're all together, which is just kind of mind-blowing. Well, how as a brand do you extend across all of those? And I think that's one of the areas that we're starting to kind of look at, really as a tools provider, to be clear. We have those platforms as well, but also as that tool provider, how can I provide a brand with something that they know they're going to be able to have consistency across each and every one of those? If they have something that is their brand, they know the representation of that is happening in VR is going to be consistent with the representation of that happening in a linear space, or an activation that they have in a physical space. So to me, that's like the excitement around all of this. And we can start to weave these narratives going through all of these different areas. And the last thing I want to say on this is, and I like to express this, like, as human beings, we're very basic, right? I like to tell a story. All of you guys are listening to my story right now. And then what you're going to do with that story is you're going to go back somewhere and you're going to apply that to your experience. That's the totality of who we are and how we operate in this space. So as a brand, how do you tap into that? How do you tell your narrative and then extend all the way into the experience? And I think that's the challenge, and that's the exciting thing that we're able to do. Oh, I do. And one more thing. There was something that just came out recently that used our instant Balenciaga. Streamline Media Group did it. And it's a really cool, like, if you start to look at it and understand what the implications are on this, you can go to it. It's online. It's kind of, you can go through and play this game. Substance Inalt also was the agency that did it. But it's a really good kind of bellwether of some of the things that I think we're going to start to see, especially coming out of this this kind of lockdown state that we're in, where we're really extending from the home into the world.
If I could actually add a little bit onto that, just a small aside. In the last 5 or 6 years that I've been doing these VR experiences for movies, there's always been, that big quality gap, right, between VR and like a feature film visual effect. But we've always done our best as much as we could to kind of bridge that. And so the first one that we did was for a movie called The Walk in 2014 or 15, somewhere around there. And so it was the skyline of New York City. And it was done at a visual effects level of detail. And, our whole job was to translate that down to make it performant on a PlayStation. And that was most of the task. But over the next year, specifically, we've been using Unreal a lot for it. We've got to a point now where we can actually take the VFX models and textures directly into the engine and use those in a performance state. And still not like no work. We still have to do a good amount of optimization. But every year that we do another one of these, we're just this much closer to just sharing those same assets, from the feature to the visual effects to VR and AR, and being able to make them live wherever they need to. And we see a lot of excitement from the studios on that, because they don't have to spend all this money rebuilding the same thing over and over. They're just excited to be able to just take one thing and then boom, it's out wherever you need it in the world.
And Jake, next year you're going to be thrilled then with Unreal 5. You just wait.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
Virtualized polygons for that is I saw that and I was like, where were you 3 years ago when it was 2 a.m. and I was down resing, whatever. So it's we're very excited about that.
Rachel, since it's a geek talk, I may, if I may, I'd like to chime in as well. So
Please, my mind is blown. I love it.
yeah. Also, I mean, as I mentioned, this also like a gamification of like a cinema is already started right now, and this is what like bringing like Unreal and so on. So last year we produced with Paramount Pictures and Intel Studios and Practical Magic, we did a Grease, You Are the One I Want. We captured more than 5 trillions of pixels using like hundreds of 4K, 6K resolution camera. We created like more than 5 trillion pixels and processed that much. And that allows you, like we brought first time 20 dancers on a stage. So you can literally go through, you can take this, watch this song from any perspective of that dancer or any role, or you can change the background and so on. So think of this as 1960s iconic Grease movie, how we brought and make it into like an immersive. And one thing I like to say, the platforms are multiplying and the borders are blurring. So when we shoot with we use a leverage a technology called a volumetric technology. And when we did this technology, you can literally create a derivative in augmented reality or virtual reality. That's something we took it to Cannes Film Festival. And we just got a Lumiere Award this year for Best Musical AR Experience, though it was captured in volumetric. So this is one very promising technology. And this is where, like, when I mentioned lights, we are transforming industry from lights, camera, action to lights, compute action. This is no longer just about the camera, the computer and camera works together hand in hand. And that's what like the big transition shift that all companies kind of like going in that direction. And pandemics taught us like how we need to do the virtual production. Another initiative with Sony Innovation Studio is also digitization of set that was fortunately started 3 years before this even like a pandemic started, and that's been used in like in a multiple movie. We leverage one of the set for a Spider-Man VR as well. And those are extremely promising technologies, and the pandemic is kind of like an accelerated growth in that direction. So, and a great job with taking guys like Epic Games and Jack Black, who actually are down in the weeds and trying to make that thing happen. So we are really privileged to have these guys to drive that momentum forward.
No, well, as consumers, we're so lucky we have, all of your kinds of, creative and innovative minds figuring out ways to push things to the next level. And I mean, I love this example about, sort of gamifying cinema, but particularly in the musical space, because that industry has just been hit so hard, harder than almost, I think, all of them, near decimation this year. So to be able to take something like a Grease or a Ratatouille and be able to gamify it or bring the thought of a musical AR experience to life, maybe there's, some hope in a fantastic billionaire who can help fuel that so that we can keep the theater alive.
Another thing I want to point out on the music side that's really relevant to this as well is that there's this new resurgence of things that music can do and places that it can show up. And I think that one is also a really fantastic kind of case study to take a step back and look. I mean, in Fortnite, we did this Travis Scott event, and the concept of having, roughly 13.5 concurrent, and I'll even say that those are accounts. So 13.5 was probably, that plus some, all watch this at one time, and then have 56 million people all told look at something. Like, this is just, that's a brand new, and worldwide, there's no borders and no boundaries for any of the stuff that we're talking about today. And I think that's where we start to get to something where you kind of that aha moment of, wow, like if you're driven by great content, and that's the important part, great content, great ideas, that's what breaks through the noise.
Incredible. So we have a couple of questions, and I think in some ways we may have led the witness, because the first question that came through to the group, how are you seeing immersive experiences evolve as we move into new productions, and what does that evolution look like in the creators world? If there's anything that any of you want to add to that, I feel like, Jake, Ravi, Miles, I think you guys all touched on it a little bit, but if there's anything that you all want to add to that.
I'll just add one stats if I may. According to like a market sense research, the global volumetric market right now is a $1.4 billion in 2020. And because of all the virtual production, and all things happening around us. By 2025, it's going to be $5.8 billion market. So what it tells, like in how world and content creators around the world kind of like a trusting, the power and the perseverance also like this technology brings and taking the experience forward. So this is a really good sign. And as Jake mentioned, I also had a very hard time trying to get some of the Oculus 2 headset, but finally they arrived. So it is like, everybody wants to get connected. I mean, for even like, having a mindfulness. So things are experiencing, and when experience like Ratatouille, and of course, we need a lot of help from Twitter, trying to democratize and let the world know what this is up to and bring that social movement also on this platform. So that's just my
I have another kind of little anecdote of sort of pseudo immersive uses of this. We recently completed a project just last week where it was originally planned to be, it's a flat output. It's a 2D YouTube video at the end. It was originally planned to be shot on an LED volume, so Mandalorian style. But then, due to practical constraints, couldn't be. So it ended up just being a green screen shoot. But what we did was, rather than having, this flat video content play around them, it became an entire, 3D tracked, like pseudo virtual production, if that makes sense, where the speaker, really looked like they were, standing in a totally different world. And all of the information and graphics and all of that would have worked plain environment, something like even like a glorified PowerPoint. They all came to life, and it was like an actual little world around him. So it's not immersive in the sense of like a VR, AR standpoint, but it is a more of traditional flat content that had a little bit more of that dab of immersive feeling, I guess.
One thing I also wanted to add, we did a neuro insight study a bit ago that showed people who are watching a sporting event together with Twitter in their hand, or a premiere, or a favorite TV show or a game at the same time, have a higher sense of personal relevance in that moment, which of course leads to greater affinity. Those people become super fans, your evangelists, your promoters. And in recent months, that only became more apparent. It's a behavior that has always existed for as long as Twitter has existed. But now the thing to do is watch with the world. And just last night, we actually had a massive digital launch party for Cyberpunk. Gaming Twitter is huge, massive, and it became like a better version of what any premiere could have been. It was democratized, there was mass participation. I didn't even know what Cyberpunk was, but I couldn't ignore it because it was, of course, trending. And there's opportunity to expand your fan base by creating these peak moments of excitement that wouldn't exist if one person was going to a movie and their friend went a week later, or you're watching a show asynchronously. I think some of what we're seeing now is this let's call for a viewing. Beyonce's movie, but Michelle Obama's Becoming, one person on Twitter would say, let's all watch now. And then you start getting millions and millions of tweets, and in so doing, billions of impressions and millions of more viewers, gamers, consumers. So I think we'll see more of that continue as each of you creates more immersive technologies, content, including Ratatouille. That was trending on Twitter. So I think it's interesting, even things created or happening on other platforms, whether it's verses on Instagram or a meme or, a cranberry juice video, those things are talked about on Twitter. It makes people more aware and it drives them to the content where it's happening.
And I think it really brings together the central theme, which is that, even though we have these incredible technologies moving at the speed of light, and you're taking a massive amount of, global feedback through the lens of, TikTok and Twitter, and slowing it down and bringing, those insights forward. At the end of the day, it's still about how everyone is ultimately craving community and shared experiences, right? And so technology, I think this year, while we've all been challenged and been at home, it's been incredible to see how at the end of the day, that no matter how advanced we are, the end goal is still to bring people together in shared experiences. We'll do a quick round robin because this question's come up a couple of times, even though I think the examples that have been mentioned have already been amazing, but our panelists are very, or our audience rather, is very taken with each of you. So the question that I've seen now on more than one occasion is, what brands aside from your own do you think are doing immersive experiences especially well? So we can do a quick round robin and then we'll say goodbye to this amazing, engaging panel, and I'm grateful to all of you guys. So Ravi, we can start with you and go around in a circle. So
I just want to start with one of our co-founders' quote: "Don't be encumbered by history, go off and do something wonderful." So this is not just for the brand, this is out there for everyone, because when anybody who has like very limited technology access or wanna be technology savvy, if they start making this and trying to get the joy this particular platform provides, then we all win. So of course, a lot of brands are doing it, both an onshore here in US and offshore, because everyone realized they can bring their story into a format that has never been experienced before. So I would say, rather than a brand, power to the people and let them bring the story and democratize the whole platform.
The people, I love it. Carly, your turn.
I mean, I agree with Ravi. I think it really has to be what the people want and what the community want. We can try to create experiences and we can try to give people the tools like gamification, like branded effects, like top view, like all sorry, that's my baby crying in the background. This is all real. But, I think at the end of the day, it really is the community that decides, what is going to go viral or what is going to be a big moment. And in my experience, it's the brands that are not afraid to hop on that trend to really, take advantage and really build campaigns around that instead of trying to kind of force it. I think it's the brands that understand organic engagement and authenticity, which is what I think we're all aiming for and what TikTok strives for, is to really come as your authentic self and be your authentic self. And, I have to say, being on this panel and hearing all of you speak and kind of all of us having that shared goal, it's pretty awesome to know that we're all working towards, this authenticity and a better 2021.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Jake?
I mean, I always get excited by and look forward to the most Miles' alma mater, ILM and Lucasfilm. I think they've really stepped into this world like nobody else. And, just the stuff I think we're a little used to it right now, but even just the fact and how Unreal was used on Mandalorian is completely mind exploding, and they still put out, VR content and they are actively trying to learn from it. So I just get excited every time I see that there's a new experience coming from them. So that's kind of an easy answer because they're always the best at most everything they do. But they have that status for a reason.
There's a reason. I was just going to agree with you on that one. Mm-hmm. Nola, go ahead.
I completely agree with Carly. I think authenticity and being human has never mattered more. The brands that start with real people at the center, like the whole world is living a shared experience in a way that's totally unprecedented. And I think, yes, you can try and create this perfect, polished, produced existence, but we all know that's BS. And especially now, people are just craving like the raw, real, unfiltered, just grittier side of life. It's unifying in many ways and can be the most delightful content of all. And I think recently I've loved seeing brands like Netflix, HBO really double down on that, starting with audience and people first and leaning into a universal truth. And one brand that I just think is so delightful and fills us all with wonder is NASA. What is more wondrous and exciting than that? When the world is a mess, let's look to the moon. And I think NASA has continued to inspire with incredible, compelling content cross-platform and on Twitter.
I love that answer. Miles, take it away.
First of all, I mean, all you guys, it all starts with the people. It all starts with a great story. That's really what it's all about. I agree with you. Again, Lucasfilm has been doing that for a long time, and being very involved with that brand in my past life, understanding all of the different touch points and where you actually have someone who says, I hate Star Wars, I hate it, but I really love R2D2, you know what I mean? And they have a whole like collection of stuff, you know, like that. It's pretty incredible how they can extend beyond. But I have to say, if I'm to talk about some things that I really like what I'm seeing right now, I have to say that the auto manufacturers are doing some really interesting things right now and visualizing their cars and personalizing them so that you can go someone and actually, again, have that experience where, oh, this is something that is relevant to me, even in these COVID times, where they're really starting to embrace some of the things that you can do, virtualizing the cars, and then like going in between. So you have it where it's real and then it's virtual, and the audience isn't aware one way or another. I think that has been really exciting and neat to see. So that's where I would.
That EV footage is way cool.
Yeah, it's
I never
spectacular.
thought I was such a car person, but my eye is so much to it as well.
And they're bringing the technology into the car, though. That's the other thing that is starting to happen right now. So yeah.
So cool. I mean, for me, I'll share that I think there are so many companies doing it well, but I think that the piece that resonates for me continues to be sort of, the things that drive us and fuel us. I suffer from a terrible case of wanderlust. So for me, anything that can sort of transport me and make me feel like I'm, experiencing culture while we are at home. Fast Company called out a really cool brand. I haven't had the chance to try it because I don't have a headset at home, called Supernatural, where you can literally work out in the world's most incredible destinations. So, you could go for a run through the Sahara, or, I don't know, do Pilates in Paris, which would be just fine by me right now. I know Nola's on board. But I think, kind of all of the marriage of all of the amazing, technical advancements and dreamscapes that are brought by, all of the incredible, creators together gives us just so much fuel and common shared bonds and all of the good stuff to continue driving us forward. So I think we had a successful panel. We're almost 20 minutes long. But I just wanted to personally thank each one of you for being a part of this really engaging afternoon. I think we uncovered some really wonderful things, and I feel very humbled and blessed to have met all of you, and I look forward to continuing relationships afterwards.
Great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks all. Happy holidays.
Take care.